Donald Trump is now getting into bed with a convicted pedophile. Figuratively. Donald Trump has already cut a deal with a pedophile. A 2-day deal to protect a pedophile, to protect Ghislaine Maxwell from being prosecuted. And I don't care if that's standard for people in jail for 20 years for the sexual abuse of children. It's 2 days of immunity. It's immunity. It is immunity at the direction of Donald Trump. Immunity. What may be a precursor to a deal. What may be a precursor to a pardon. What may be a precursor to her walking out of jail any time earlier than the year 2037. The latest from the Trumpstein disaster is Donald Trump is figuratively getting into bed with a pedophile. You're not making a deal with, you're not giving brief immunity to, you're not maybe pardoning a Paul Manafort for vague financial crimes that as bad as they are, you have to look them up because the only vibe you get is vague financial crime. You are not pardoning Dinesh D'Souza for being stupid while Republican. You're not commuting the sentence of Rod effing Blagojevich or promising to pardon Pete Rose, even though it's 3 months, and he still hasn't pardoned Pete Rose, so if you bet the under, you lose. This is sending the Attorney General's deputy, previously one of your own personal scumbag, sleazebag, Trump shill lawyer mouthpieces, to meet with a convicted sex trafficker and child rapist who is not eligible to be released until she is 76 goddamned years old, and giving her 2 days worth of temporary immunity in which she can't be further prosecuted for anything she said to him. Trump, you have already cut a deal with a pedophile. You, Todd Blanche, you are already figuratively in bed with a pedophile. You, Donald Trump, are already figuratively in bed with a pedophile. And you, Trump supporters and blind MAGA cult slaves and Republicans in the House and the Senate, you are all already figuratively in bed with a pedophile. 2 weeks ago today, one of Trump's other personal scumbag, sleazebag, shill lawyer mouthpieces, the now Solicitor General of the United States, John Sauer, told the Supreme Court to reject Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal of her 20-year sentence. Trump's attorney reminded the Supreme Court that the former prosecutor had said Ghislaine Maxwell is guilty of one of the worst crimes imaginable, facilitating and participating in the sexual abuse of children. That was 2 weeks ago, but sure, make a deal. Art of the deal. Trump's the great deal maker. Make the deal with the rapist of children. Of the woman who essentially held the girls down. Make the deal with the woman who sold the children to the rapists. Make that deal, Trump, deal maker. And you know, Trump, what that deal is called. It is called selling your soul to the devil, if you had any soul left to sell. You, Donald Trump, and all of you who support him, stand on the precipice. This is not the effing Access Hollywood tape. This is not even the January 6th pardons. You are figuratively getting into bed with Ghislaine Maxwell, and by extension, with Jeffrey Epstein. You are figuratively getting into bed with pedophiles right now. You are figuratively getting into bed with the process of covering up pedophilia. Your shoes are already off. I don't care who under-prosecuted this in the past and which political group demanded prosecutions when and then went silent, as MAGA did. This is about now and today. And now and today, Trump has already made a deal with a pedophile about pedophilia. And Trump's deputy attorney general has already made a deal with a pedophile about pedophilia. And Trump's supporters have thus already made a deal with a pedophile about pedophilia. There is now no way out of Trumpstein for Trump. The only question remains, is there a way out of Trumpstein for Trump's supporters? And this will only get worse. Because if Trump tries to hide behind Ghislaine Maxwell in some way, Ghislaine Maxwell lying, or Ghislaine Maxwell fabricating, or Ghislaine Maxwell telling the truth, Trump becomes pro-pedophilia. We, who abhor him, always have to remind ourselves to treat Trump as if he is Carrie White from the movie Carrie, dead and buried and still reaching out to try to drag Amy Irving to hell with her. He could have some plan we can't see. It's the only thing he's good at. He could have some plan we can't see, some plan to use Ghislaine Maxwell in some way that clears him and implicates, I don't know, Jerome Powell. But if not, all Trump will get out of Todd Blanche's 2-day trip to see her is a whole new series of octopus tentacles. Or to stick to just one analogy here, a whole new set of Carrie's arms reaching up from hell to take Trump with her. And even if he has some plan, his administration is, right now, on Ghislaine Maxwell's side. And anything from here, other than totally repudiating her, is Trump walking blindfolded through a live minefield. Because apart from the court of law uselessness of Ghislaine Maxwell, so useless that one expert remarked that were Jeffrey Epstein still alive and trying to defend himself today, and Maxwell was willing to help him defend himself, his lawyer would never let her testify. She isn't just damaged goods, but legally she is burnt to a cinder goods. She is a proven perjurer. But this is not a court of law. This is Trump's existential Trumpstein crisis, unlike anything he has been through in at least the last 10 years. It could dry up this week. It has still done damage to him that nothing else previously has done, not even January 6th. This is Trump's existential crisis and his desperate effort to win back any of the 83% of Americans who are not approving how he is handling Trumpstein. And it blows up. Those landmines blow up. Trump blows himself up with these simple truths. The first of them, underscored yesterday by Michael A. Cohen, not the ex-Trump lawyer, the guy from the Center for Strategic Studies at Tufts. Michael A. Cohen notes if Ghislaine Maxwell had any information that could have reduced her sentence for child sex trafficking, why didn't she provide it before they prosecuted her, before they convicted her, before they sentenced her to 20 years, before she eliminated herself as a possible witness in Epstein's defense, before Epstein saw no other way but suicide? Oh, I'll just hold this other information back and go to the penitentiary for 3 years. 3 years last Friday, by the way. I'll just wait them all out. That'll show them. I'm playing the long game. 3 years in the big house, much better than telling somebody what I know that could keep me out of the big house. She has nothing both new and true. The second truth, as mentioned, 2 weeks ago, Trump's DOJ argued against her appeal. Trump's DOJ 2 weeks ago to the Supreme Court 2 weeks ago. The third truth, she is convicted of committing heinous crimes against children. The official Department of Justice records dating back to the first Trump administration brand her a perpetrator of sexual crimes against children. These people are, by definition, not just no longer credible. Nobody wants to be in the same room with them. The fourth truth, in her own defense, Ghislaine Maxwell refused to even entertain the possibility of testifying against anybody else. Suddenly, she's entertaining that. Trump's critics will put holes through her on this point alone. She put holes through herself about this. And guess what happens to Trump if he's standing behind somebody like that? The fifth truth, she has already repeatedly lied under oath, perjury. Why on earth would anybody believe she would not lie while not under oath? On top of the moral degeneracy of just Trump sending somebody to meet with this scum, apart from the moral degeneracy of Trump immunizing her even just for 2 days, she has no credibility. Even within the QAnon Trumpist circles. She is not just one of humanity's villains. She is not just one of reality's villains. She is one of the QAnon fantasy world's villains. She doesn't improve Trump's case. She manages somehow to tarnish Trump's already human garbage reputation. But go ahead, jump into bed with her, Trump. You should figuratively jump into bed with this child rapist as many times as you can. Good call. That, Trump, will certainly stop the Trumpstein scandal. Now, this doesn't even factor in the reality that in each of his desperate attempts to change this subject, Trump has managed to incriminate himself in some other way. Before he left for Scotland, while trying to clear himself by incriminating others in the pedophilia end of the Trumpstein scandal, Trump managed only to clear others in the cover-up end of the Trumpstein scandal and incriminate himself in the cover-up end of the Trumpstein scandal. How did nobody else hear this soundbite and not say, wait, Trump is not only admitting there is an Epstein list, and he is admitting he has this Epstein list, and he is boasting that he could easily release this Epstein list, and that he is boasting he could give it to you right now, and he is incriminating himself in the cover-up by implying he will not give you this Epstein list that he confirms exists.
You know, you should focus on Clinton. You should focus on the president of Harvard, the former president of Harvard. You should focus on some of the hedge fund guys. I'll give you a list. These guys lived with Jeffrey Epstein. I sure as hell didn't. Thank you very much. Mr. President, just don't be president.
I'll give you a list? There's a list? I'll give you a list. I mean, forgive me for going out on a limb and inferring things here, but when he says, I'll give you a list, that makes me think there's a list. And when he says, I'll give you a list, that makes me think he can give me that list. And when he says, I'll give you a list, that makes me think he's not giving me the list. And that is the essence of the Trumpstein cover-up to which he just confessed. Guilty. There's a list. I'll show you a list. I'll give you a list. I won't give it to you. This is my point. This slob can't move. He is so guilty in so many different ways in this one story that as he tries to de-incriminate himself in one part of this continent-sized quicksand pit, he only manages to sink deeper into a different part of the same pit. And whichever illegal, immoral move he makes with Ghislaine Maxwell, he will only multiply his game of choose your adventure. And guess what? He can't survive any of the adventures. And on top of all that, something else that seems to have gone by unnoticed, the details of what there is of Trump in the Epstein files, in the Epstein list Trump confirmed last Friday exists, and he could give it to you. The details of where he is in them are being leaked out so methodically and at such regular intervals that I am beginning to suspect this has all been planned. That somebody is torturing Trump with this drip, drip, drip of pedophilia and child trafficking and Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and blackmail and a Trump conspiracy to cover all of it up. The cover-up, which he has to admit to in hopes that you'll only think about other people on the list and not the fact that he has the list and is covering up the list. This has to have been planned. Somebody is doing this to him. It's too well organized. Who's torturing him? On one level, who cares? Give him a Nobel Peace Prize. See if anybody shows up to claim it. But if you had to guess, well, who was that on June 5th of this year who tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." Who, on July 16th, called Trump's actions about the files, quote, a cover-up, obviously. Who wrote on July 22nd that Speaker Mike Johnson sent the House of Representatives home before an Epstein vote for, quote, only one reason. Who, the next day, the 23rd, responded to the refusal of Trump's Department of Justice to unseal the Epstein grand jury testimony by writing a one-word accusation. Why? And who had almost unfettered access to every computer in every branch of government, every day for 4 months, including all of them at the Department of Justice? Who had a small group of computer nerds and hackers slavishly devoted personally to him, accessing everything? Who had Trump's ear? Who seemingly had control of many, if not most, of the tools of Trump's administration, and I do mean tools, until they broke suddenly and dramatically like psychopathic narcissists always eventually do break? Who has been overtaken by waves of embittered, irrational, uncontrollable revenge? Not just once, but after he tried to clean up the first one, a second wave. Who could have walked out of the White House with anything the Department of Justice had on Epstein without Pam Blondie or Donald Trump ever knowing that it was gone? Who could have walked out with all the Epstein stuff and, all the Epstein Trumpstein stuff, too? First, Axios reports that Trump's administration has done a 180. There's no list. Epstein killed himself. Sorry, QAnon. July 6th, 5 months after Bondi said there was a list, and it was on her desk at that moment. The DOJ releases its video of the Epstein suicide minute to prove he killed himself. That was July 7th. Countless reporters are tipped to the oopsie in that. Ooh, that video is missing the Epstein suicide minute. The DOJ then has to explain all of its tapes are missing that particular minute of the day. All July 7th, Trump is then so rattled he attacks his own supporters for asking about Epstein on July 8th. On July 11th, sources tell Wired is a computer and tech magazine the DOJ tape, it's actually several tapes edited together, and that the metadata on the tape says, metadata, that stuff computer people traffic in, that the original one doesn't have 1 minute missing. It has 2 minutes and 53 seconds missing, like the Watergate gap. July 15th, somebody at ABC News, Catherine Faulders, knows enough to ask Trump in a gaggle on the lawn about everything else to ask him just randomly out of the blue if Pam Bondi told him in a briefing that he is in the Epstein files. Just out of nowhere, she thought of that question. She's a good reporter. I always doubt it when a reporter just suddenly has a light bulb go off and say, listen, let me ask you about something that hasn't been talked about in weeks. July 16th, Trump, aware that something is up, calls anybody asking about Epstein a, quote, former supporter and says he doesn't want their support. That night, July 16th, the Wall Street Journal reports Trump is in the Epstein files and had composed a bawdy letter cryptically referring to Epstein's beautiful secret. The Wall Street Journal, a paper that billionaires like to read about themselves in. July 22nd, CNN publishes videos of Trump and Epstein together and images of Epstein at Trump's wedding with his second wife, Marla. July 23rd, the Wall Street Journal again. That would be a money newspaper, reports Bondi did tell Trump in May that he's in the file. 8 days after somebody thought, maybe I should ask him if Bondi told him he's in the file. July 24th, the New York Times publishes a picture of the Epstein birthday book and a reference to Trump in that picture. Wherever did they get that? July 24th, Trump is so rattled he again insists that the entire Epstein story is a Democratic plot and that as the files are revealed, quote, you'll see that it is another Democratic con job, again underscoring that that can't be true because if it were, he should be revealing all of it immediately because it would exonerate him and implicate the Democrats. And last Friday, as he leaves for Scotland, Trump tries to prove he is innocent by saying there is a list of people who lived with Epstein, and he could show it to you, proving he's guilty of lying about the list and proving he won't release the list, which, by definition, is a cover-up. And then Friday, when he gets to Scotland, he is again asked about what Pam Bondi told him in their briefing in May, and now he denies she briefed him at all. This is not Woodward and Bernstein here. This could be random good journalistic work, except for two things. Two things that every detail in this story has in common. All the details concern videos, scans of documents, scans of photographs, or other stuff that would have been in Department of Justice computers. And so far, all of it has dated to May 28th or earlier. May 28th, the day Elon Musk left the White House. 8 days before Elon Musk tweeted and deleted Trump is in the Epstein files. But sure, it could be somebody else. Somebody else with access to the Justice Department computers and videos and scans and records of Pam Bondi's briefings of Trump that are in those computers and records of everything in the government up until May 28th. Could anybody with that kind of access could be the person torturing Trump? Anybody with total access to everything. So it may be Musk torturing Trump over Trumpstein, and Trump is metaphorically getting into bed with a convicted pedophile. And as Trump discovered yesterday in Scotland while announcing his latest bullshit tariff deal with whoever, the EU, I guess. As Trump discovered yesterday, Trumpstein is never, ever, ever going away.
Mr. President, was part of the rush to get this deal done to knock the Jeffrey Epstein story out?
Oh, you got to be kidding with that. No, had nothing to do with it. Only you would think that. That had nothing to do with it.
Little else rises to the level of Trumpstein, but I would be derelict in my duties if I did not fill you in on Ryan Walters and the basketball scoreboard theory of being a pervert or miscreant. Ryan Walters is the superintendent of education for the state of Oklahoma and a Class 1A Bible-thumping MAGA fascist nut job. He is that psycho who demanded that videos be shown in all Oklahoma public schoolrooms of him praying for Trump before the election. Ryan Walters is the theocrat who demands the teaching of the Ten Commandments in public schools. He's the one who demanded the use of the Trump-endorsed $90 Bibles because the free Bibles aren't good enough. He is the lunatic who is screening job applicants in Oklahoma based on whether or not they're woke. Ryan Walters is the idiot who put the libs of TikTok witch on his state education board. He is the head of public education in one of the statistically stupidest states in the union and in the world. Ryan Walters, superintendent of education of Oklahoma, who had porn playing on a TV screen in his office during Thursday's meeting of the Oklahoma State Board of Education, according to two of its members. You should excuse the use of the word members. But two members of that board tell the media that they saw a video featuring two naked women. One says he thought he saw them on a chiropractic table in the video, playing on a TV in Walter's office, the video, not the women, while they were in there attending the executive session portion of their meeting in Ryan Walters' office. Taxpayer-funded state of Oklahoma office space. The story was broken by Non-Doc, short for Non-Doctrinaire, the news outlet of the Sustainable Journalism Foundation of Oklahoma. Non-Doc quoted member Becky Walters, who was there. Quote, I was like, what am I seeing? I was kind of in shock, honestly. I started to question whether I was actually seeing what I was seeing. I was like, is that woman naked? And then I was like, no, she's got a bodysuit on. It happened very quickly. I was like, that is not a bodysuit. And I hate to even use these terms, but I said, those are her nipples. And then I was looking closer and I got a full body view and I was like, that is pubic hair. Even right now, I couldn't even tell you what I was watching. As an aside, it sounds like an animated version of Trump's drawing for Epstein, doesn't it? Back to the quote, I was so disturbed by it that I was like, very loudly and boastfully, like I was a parent or a teacher, I said, what is on your TV? What am I watching? He, Walters, was like, what? What are you talking about? He stood up and saw it. He made acknowledgement that he saw it. And I said, turn it off now. And he was like, what is this? What is this? So he acknowledged it was inappropriate just by those words. And he was like, I can't get it to turn off. I can't figure out how to turn it off. And I said, get it turned off. So he finally got it turned off. And that was the end of it. He didn't address it. He didn't apologize. Nothing was said. The implication here is the naked women video was on a loop in Ryan Walters' office on a TV or monitor permanently adjusted to make sure you couldn't stop it. The president pro tempore of the Oklahoma Senate says an investigation into Ryan Walters has begun. Quote, "This is a bizarre and troubling situation that raises serious questions about the events and what took place during Thursday's executive session at the Oklahoma State Board of Education's meeting." Director Walters says everybody's lying but him. You know how this turns out. You've known how this turns out before you heard the story. I've explained previously what a psychiatric professional friend of mine explained to me when I asked about people like this, the public face, private reality people. You know the types, the homophobe who's a customer of gay prostitutes, the anti-abortion protester and bomber who has paid for a dozen abortions in his lifetime, the, say, Bible-thumping anti-porn fascist head of education who has video of naked women playing on a loop in his office during an official state meeting of the Board of Education. I call my friend's explanation the basketball scoreboard theory of such rationalization. If you are, say, Ryan Walters or somebody like him, and you have decided porn or atheism or wokeness or Democrats are evil and you must fight them, and then it turns out you collect porn and you frequent, transgendered prostitutes, and you commit these sins in your own life and you decide you've been a bad boy, and this makes you anti-God and woke and maybe even a Democrat. In your mind, you are in a kind of moral basketball game, and each one of your sins is 2 points scored against you. So obviously the solution is not to stop committing what you think is a sin. That wouldn't work, and it could never be enough. You just must score more points on the anti-sin scoreboard than you give up on the sin scoreboard. So you start shooting threes. You demand the purge of gays and banning transgender care and banning abortion and putting up the 10 Commandments in the schools and pimping for libs of TikTok and Trump. And you point up at that scoreboard and it's suddenly anti-sin 100, sin 98. You won! And that means you haven't committed any sins, because the net effect of your life is anti-sin. 100 to 98, 2 points. Doesn't matter if it's 2 points. You can't be guilty of sin. Look at all those anti-sin points. In fact, my friend went on, if you've done so much anti-sin campaigning, my term again, that the scoreboard says anti-sin 200 points, pro-sin 98 points, you may very well say to yourself, great, I can go out and commit 80 more points of sin now and I'll still be anti-sin. You see, God? See, Mommy? See, Daddy? See my own conscience? I'm still more anti-sin than pro-sin. I covered the spread. Oh, God, don't say spread. In this construction, the Ryan Walters kind of guy just gave up about 10 pro-sin points. Playing porn on a loop in your office during your Board of Education meeting, executive session, that's at least 10 points. In fact, you may have just blown the lead. Oh, God, don't say blown. That's another 2 points. Exit Ryan Walters. Also of interest here, the Colbert blowback continues, and all I can tell you is, while you are still worried about how he's being silenced, well, how he will be silenced when his show goes off the air 300 days from now, by which time ABC and NBC might have already canceled their shows. Hadn't thought of that, had you? While you're still worried about Colbert, you may have missed that part where CBS and the Ellisons and new boss Jeff Shell of the CBS whorehouse have committed a real Goebbels-level assault on the First Amendment. They have agreed to appoint an in-house censor to make sure CBS News doesn't do anything Trump wouldn't like. Never mind Colbert, never mind late-night TV, never mind comedy, the news. F Stephen Colbert. This is what we should be goddamn rioting about. That's next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
Still ahead on this all-new edition of Countdown. So I worked last week with a delightful movie director with whom I last worked in 1987. The man who put me in the golf movie, Dead Solid Perfect. I think it's the greatest golf movie of all time, but it starred Randy Quaid. I swear. And I loved working with Randy Quaid. He was great. Our reunion as my old friend Bobby Roth is doing a documentary on saving democracy. Next in Things I Promise Not to Tell. First, believe it or not, there's still more new idiots to talk about. The roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's other worst persons in the world. Honorable mention. I don't know who to cite here. Did the astronomer company pay Gwyneth Paltrow to do their self-mocking video about the Coldplay canoodling, or did she pay them? She was, of course, married to the lead singer of Coldplay, and there were stories about irregularities in the marriage. And once again, if you think that the ex-CEO and the ex-HR person are being unfairly treated and now being unfairly treated by their former employer, they went to a Coldplay concert. Their lives were already over. Anywho, there goes Chris Martin as a subscriber. The nominees, runner-up worst, Scott McKay. Who is Scott McKay? He claims to have a source close to high-level Trump administration figures. He's a QAnon conspiracy theorist, so those sources could be invisible, or they might be brownies and elves. Scott McKay tells his audience, fellow morons, whatever they are, that Hillary Clinton was executed at Guantanamo in 2018. So what you're seeing now, that's a different Hillary Clinton. And there were 5 or 6 different people portraying Joe Biden, and the, quote, fake Obama is going to be arrested soon. Now, this is the best damn news all day. Multiple Hillary Clintons, 6 Joe Bidens, extra Obamas, all of them there to kick Trump's ass? Let's go! The runner-up, there is a senator dumber than all the other ones. Even dumber than Josh Hawley. Even dumber than Ted Cruz. Even dumber than Roger Marshall. We all remember 911. Dumber even than the dumbest congressman or congresswoman. Dumber than Boebert and Luna and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And how great was that tweet with a picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene and the caption, Hulk Hogan dead at 71. Dumber than all of them, Senator Mike, the internet ate my brain and my hair, Lee. Mike Lee writes, no executive branch officer should ever harbor, much less display, severe contempt for any president of the United States, yet Jay Powell clearly does. And there is a clip of Jerome Powell undressing Trump, metaphorically, thank God, at that building site last week. The Fed is no executive branch officer. The chairman of the Fed, that's not part of the executive branch, Senator Lee. The Federal Reserve is not part of the executive branch. That is the point of having the Fed. The other point is Mike Lee is also dumber than a balding 5th grader who just flunked out of social studies class. But the winners, the FCC chairman, and those who are still complaining about the cancellation of the Stephen Colbert show next May Yeah, we silenced him. It's a criminal conspiracy against Stephen Colbert. He can only say whatever he wants for the next 9 months. Doesn't seem to me to be a very effective way of silencing somebody. I'm not trying to defend the Trump administration on this, but stop giving them goddamn credit for pulling this off. This is CBS doing this, and market forces. You got 1,000 things to complain about, like this. While you are paying attention to Stephen Colbert, the FCC is not doing anything about silencing Stephen Colbert 10 months from now. The FCC has approved the CBS, Skydance, Skydong, Sky Paramount, whatever the merger is. It has been approved and will be run by some of the worst people in America. The Ellisons, the degenerate ex-friend of mine, Jeff Shell, who was chairman of NBC for like 2 weeks, then got fired and started to pursue a lawsuit because he was unfairly fired, and then dropped the lawsuit without any money. CBS, the new ownership, the Sherry Redstone Group, is installing what amounts to an in-house political compliance officer inside CBS News. This is not somebody reporting to Trump. This is somebody reporting to the board of directors of the new CBS ownership, who'll be standing over the news saying, no, you can't say that. It's not pro-conservative. No, you can't say that. It favors them minorities. I'll quote the New York Times. In recent days, Skydance took steps to assuage FCC chief Brendan Joseph Goebbels' Carr, Times didn't call him that, I did, telling the agency that it would install an official at the news division to ensure fairness in its journalism and committing to avoiding diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the company. In his statement, Mr. Carr lauded these steps. And by the way, Mr. Carr has his job because of a DEI program, which admits people with IQs under 10. In his statement, Mr. Carr lauded these steps, saying they would begin the process of earning back Americans' trust. Carr, the chairman of the FCC, said in a statement that the agency had approved the deal after receiving assurances from Skydance that the new company would be committed to unbiased journalism, which means, of course, for Carr, that they will be committed to biased journalism, pro-Trump journalism, pro-fascism journalism, pro-Nazi journalism. Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media to report fully, accurately, and fairly, Mr. Carr said in his statement. It is time for a change. That is why I welcome Skydance's commitment to make significant changes at the once storied CBS broadcast network. Carr doesn't even realize that in his statement he's acknowledging that after he's gotten through with it, CBS will no longer be storied, except as a whorehouse. This is CBS, a whorehouse. Listen, Joseph Goebbels, you don't trust them because they have been, since the inception in the 20s, they have been reporting fully, accurately, and fairly. And if that is allowed to continue, those attributes will dethrone Trump and scumbags like you, Carr. And by the way, if you don't like the Goebbels comparison, maybe you should stop the Goebbels stuff, asshole. Brendan, or if you prefer, call him Dolores Umbridge Carr, today's other worst person in the world! To the number one story on the countdown, and things I promised not to tell, and sometimes that becomes things I am all too happy to tell, and this is one of those. About a month ago, I got an email from a man who said he was a documentary film producer and director and was producing and directing a documentary film, surprisingly enough, about democracy, about people in favor of democracy and those who had gone to some personal effort to save democracy. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, he said he'd already interviewed him. He'd interviewed the great environmentalist and protester Peter Coyote, also the great actor and voiceover documentarian Peter Coyote, and many others on a great list, and he now wanted to interview me. And if that were not enough for me to say yes, Bobby Roth is the man's name, and Bobby was and remains the director of the only motion picture I am actually in as an actor. In 1987, Bobby did, and this is something of a conflict of terminology here, a great golf film. It is my contention that great golf films don't generally exist. Golf is, to me, not a means of conveying anything. If you're playing it, God bless you. It's a great sport and good exercise. And not too much exercise. But it's a great sport if you're playing it. I never particularly enjoyed the long game, but the putting game is fascinating to me. I wouldn't watch golf at gunpoint. In any event, he took the wonderful story of Dead Solid Perfect by Roy Jenkins, one of Roy Jenkins' golf novels, and took it and adapted it and made it into a film for HBO in 1987, and it's the damnedest movie you'd ever want to see about golf. It, as we used to say at ESPN, moves like a rocket. It's not like golf. There's no slow play. It's not boring. It's not a bunch of guys contemplating their navels and the exact lie of the putt. It's not like that. It's about golf as a competitive, cutthroat industry with terrible people in it. And some good ones. And some funny ones. And so he approached me in 1987 when I was a local sportscaster in Los Angeles and had dark hair and was 28 years old and asked me to be announcer number one. I was to play a golf announcer, and this was going to be a stretch because I was not a golf announcer. He gave me a copy of the script. We met at the Hollywood Masonic Temple near Channel 5 in L.A. I got to watch him film a scene, a press conference. I got to meet the star of the movie and a couple of the second and third leads. The star of the movie was a very good, very nice man, a very good actor whose work I had seen dating back to my days in high school. A great guy named Randy Quaid, who was 100% lovely to me. This is long before things began to deteriorate, but even after they did, he was 100% lovely to me. And of all the MAGA stuff I've ever seen, the least explicable one is what it did to Randy Quaid. Also, an extraordinarily gifted actor, and if you don't believe me, go see The Last Detail. It's Jack Nicholson's film, probably his last small part, and Randy Quaid overwhelms him. It's Randy Quaid's film. I'll leave it at that. So Bobby Roth hands me a script and says, here are your lines, and go home and learn them, and we'll see you at the Valencia Golf Club at 4 o'clock in the morning on such and such a date. Summer of 1987. I think July, maybe August. I get there, no sleep, having carefully learned announcer number one's lines. I'm going to be in a movie on HBO. That's when a new HBO film was a rarity and a big deal, and it usually would then get a theatrical release somewhere, and it would live in perpetuity on syndicated television. And it was just fun. And I did say to him, you know, I'm not a member of the Screen Actors Guild. And at that point, AFTRA, the TV Actors and TV Performers Union, was not merged with the Screen Actors Guild. You had to be in both separately. I said, I'm not a member. We'll pay for your initiation fee. Well, I mean, they were giving me maybe $5,000 to be in the film. And the initiation fee was probably $5,002. They paid both just to get me in the film. He really wanted me. He was a fan. And so I show up, and I've learned announcer number one's lines, and they introduce me to the other guy playing announcer number one. And I said, no, I'm playing announcer number one. And they said, no, this is Don Morrow. You may remember Don from such TV commercials as the Shell Answer Man. Don Morrow had a perfect voice. Don Morrow was, hi, I'm Don Morrow. And Don used to do these commercials for Shell gasoline in which he would stand there on a road with a clipboard and a white doctor's smock down to his ankles and explain to you that you should not drive while watching television and that you should probably remember to put gas in the car and you should use Shell. That was the Shell Answer Man. Or Mr. A.H. of Akron, Ohio writes in and says his tires are on fire. What should he do? It's very simple. Go to your nearest Shell dealer and buy new ones. Try to put the fire out first. That was the commercials. It made him a fortune, and he did thousands of other voiceovers for commercials. That was the one he was on camera for. But now I am noticing a problem, even though I am operating on fumes, no sleep, and I'm terrified because I haven't acted since high school. And here I am with a professional crew, and there are hundreds of them there at the golf club at that hour of the day, and they are awaiting the arrival of my new friend Randy Quaid, who's due to shoot that morning and is coming in early to visit with me. He wants to see us shoot this scene because he's a fan of mine. But a problem has arisen. I have learned announcer number one's line. Meanwhile, the casting agent for the film has cast another announcer number one, Don Morrow. I said, what do we do about this, Mr. Morrow? He went, they'll figure it out. And he went back to reading his newspaper and drinking cup after coffee after cup of coffee. Sure enough, the second unit director comes over. She has no idea who I am. She has a large 1987-style walkie-talkie, big enough that if she hit you in the head with it, you would lose consciousness. And she says, hi, I'm Eileen, or whatever her name was. I'm the second unit director, and we have a little bit of a problem, and it's our fault. Don't worry about it. But we have 2 announcers number 1 and 0 announcers number 2. How soon do you think you could learn the lines for announcer number 2? Because apparently that was the original intention here, and we just screwed it up. And I said, in high school, we did The Odd Couple, and I did a couple of ad libs with movement that occurred to me in the moment on stage, and they got roars of laughter from the crowd, and the advisor, who was also the advisor to the newspaper and the yearbook and the radio station, took me aside afterwards and said, F the sportscasting thing, you should be an actor, you have all the instincts we could never teach you. And I almost went that way, but the next time we did the show, somebody lost their lines and froze on stage and went backstage and started screaming and crying, and I never wanted to be that close to it ever again. So I haven't acted since then, but I was very good in 1975. It's 1987 now, and I haven't done any acting in the interim, so I can probably learn announcer number 2's lines in, let's see, what day is this? Is Tuesday? By next Monday. And she looked at me and smiled and went, I'll get right back to you. And she went over and conferred with Don Morrow. How soon do you think you could learn announcer number 2's lines? We'll just switch it up here and you can be the golf expert. And he went, I don't need any time. I can do it right now. We can do it right now. And she went, really? But you don't even have the lines in front of you. Well, I will need a pair of scissors, some Scotch tape, and a second copy of the script. Oh, and a nice permanent marker, please. And everybody in this room where we were waiting, this tent, because, of course, Valencia, California in late July, early August is the only place in California at that time of year where the humidity will go up. So it's not even light yet, and it's probably 90 degrees and 90% humidity, which never happens in Southern California, and we are already baking. And every face in that room is now contemplating the prospect of having to stay even longer in this heat because they screwed up and cast 2 announcers number 1 and no announcer number 2. And Don Morrow has just saved them from this by saying all he needs is a pair of scissors, Scotch tape, a second copy of the script, and a permanent magic marker. And I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, I've heard of the Lee Strasberg School and the Eva Le Gallienne School and the what's the thing where you inhabit the character, and there's a couple of other ones, but I've never heard of the Scotch tape and scissors school of acting. I got to see this. We go out onto the set. There is Don, who's a lovely guy, and he's got his scissors and his extra copy of the script and his Scotch tape and his marker, and we sit on the set where we're going to do this scene, which we are the golf announcers. It is, if you've ever seen a golf tournament on television, even for a minute, they used to, and it's less so like this now, but they used to sit in one central location built out on the first hole or the 18th or somewhere prominent on a golf course, and it would be a small outdoor set that looked rather like an election night set. It was that big, that crowded, and full of that much crap and extra people sitting out there, keeping track of where golfers are at various places. It's far more intricate than it looks. And to my mind, televising that main set would be far more interesting than televising a golf tournament, unless it was just putts. Okay, I've used that joke 1,000 times now. So we go out there, and it's a wonderfully appointed set. It's beautifully dressed by these guys who have left no stone where it should be. There are 134 clipboards. There's 17 monitors pointing in every direction. There's chairs. There's extras. There's pens. There's golf clubs. There's weather maps. There's course maps. It's just full of debris from a golf tournament. And now Don asks me to sit where I'm going to sit during the shot. And he said, will you be leaning? And when you move, just lean as far forward as you think you're probably going to move during the two shots. And I leaned and he went, okay, got it. He now cuts out the first line of announcer number 2, and in the left side of it writes the number 1 and circles it with his magic marker. He gets out his Scotch tape, and he tapes the line to a monitor, which he can see when he looks at me. It is about head high, where my head is, but behind me by about 5 feet. And now on it is the first line for announcer number 2. So when he has to give announcer number 2's first line, Don is in fact reading it from a teleprompter that only has his first line on it. He now tapes line number 2 about, 8, 9 degrees clockwise of there, so that it's out towards where I would look if I looked slightly to my left. Line number 3, he now cuts out and marks and tapes right in front of me so that he can sort of look at me and then look forward towards the course. And on the monitor in front of me is his line number 3, and so on until, in like a sprinkler pattern around this set, all of his 12 lines as announcer number 2, which he didn't learn and I didn't learn, are in an array that goes from left over my shoulder to right over where I would be looking when I looked at Don. Genius, I tells you. And I said, so you've done this before? Oh, yes, many times. I said, have you done this before? Where they've screwed up and they changed the lines at the last minute? Many times. I said, I'll have to ask you, did they ever do this on the Shell Answer Man commercials? You bet your ass. I learned a lot about the entertainment industry that day that I had not known. In any event, Randy Quaid came by and said hello, and as I said, he was 100% wonderful to me, and was a fan, and was delightful, and had comments about some of the sportscasts I did, and the bits that I'd done that bordered on acting. He went, have you ever considered being an actor? I mean, you really probably could pull it off. I went, I'm not going down this path again. The last time I did this, another actor wound up screaming and crying in the back of the set. Okay, you do a great job. Don't change anything. I'll look for you at the premiere. So now I leave, and it's like, well, that's Hollywood. I don't know how much money they have spent to get me to play a part I was not supposed to play. I don't know what they've spent on Don Morrow. But now I've met Don, and he's become a friend of mine, and maybe now I can start my career in the voiceover industry, which he mentions in passing is kind of lucrative. And the months go by, and Bobby goes and edits it, and apparently it's going to make its premiere on HBO sometime around Christmas. And at some point in November, the inevitable call comes, can you make it to a sweetening session? A sweetening session is very simply what happens when they decide some of the lines in the film are not audible. And since we shot outdoors, many of the lines were not audible. We had to go and re-record, Don and I, some of our golf parlay. And I go to this studio in North Hollywood where I meet the engineer who I wound up going out on a couple of dates with. She was really nice and very pleasant. And we go there, and I'm waiting to see my new friend Don Morrow. And is Randy going to be here? No. Oh, I like Randy. And in comes Don Morrow, only it's not Don Morrow, who was a substantial guy with a great voice, a great set of pipes, but probably about 5'9", 135 pounds. And instead of him, I'm introduced to the guy who's going to do his lines for him. Hi, I'm Phil. And Phil is 6'8", 380. And I might be understating this, but Phil looked like two Dons standing on each other's shoulders. And I went, how in the hell does this work? Where's Don? Don's at his villa in Spain. I said, Don has a villa in Spain? He goes, yes. He didn't like the one in Switzerland. The weather was too cold. What? Yeah, the voiceover job, if you get the upper echelon stuff, it pays really well. I have a villa in Paris. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm doing this wrong. I have a 1-bedroom in Beverly Hills, and I pay too much for that. And it's in Beverly Hills. What am I doing wrong? Well, I'm still doing it wrong. But that's besides the point. Phil explains that he covers for Don when Don is out of the country or unavailable and they need to do sweetening or other events in which they have booked Don Morrow or want to and he's not there and they want the shill answer man. So now they have contacted him. And I said, how does this work? You sound nothing like Don Morrow. And he goes, no, and Don doesn't sound anything like me, but he fills in for me when I'm not there. Sure enough, we go into the studio. Comes time for me to read a line. I read a line, and I look over, and I go, I don't know how this could possibly work. And Phil, the giant, the lumberjack of a man, promptly reads Don Morrow's line as if Don were speaking through him in some kind of ESP thing, in some kind of possession thing, where he is speaking from a villa in Spain via this guy's mouth. And he sounds exactly the same. And after I get through this existentially challenging experience, how could anybody do this impression? I said, and he can do you? Yes. He's probably a little better at doing me than I am at doing him. And we go home, and that's the end of it. And the next thing I see is the movie on the premiere night. And as I said, this is really worth your time, this film. It really is. It's a great, funny film. Jack Warden, the great actor, is in it. The score, one of the first they ever did, was by the group Tangerine Dream. So that score alone keeps the movie moving. HBO ran it forever and ever, and it was very successful, and I think it got a couple of cable awards. And Bobby, when I saw him last week, was really proud of it and kept wondering why it's not being streamed. It's still funny. It's a Roy Jenkins novel. It's still wonderful. And we go and see the film, and it's hilarious. And it has, and Bobby mentioned this last week, it has not only lots of scenes that real golfers think are really good, but it has the scene, Bobby said, that for decades, every golfer he's ever met who's found out that he did dead solid perfect had said, you have the greatest scene, the greatest individual scene in any golf movie. Never mind that crap Billy Madison or whatever the hell that Adam Sandler film is. And Adam Sandler is a lovely guy, but I didn't laugh once in that first film, which I was supposed to be in, but got sick and couldn't go. And I imagine I'm not going to laugh at anything in the second one because I'm not going to go see it. But all the other golf films, Tin Cup, not funny. There was some serious golf movie and something about, a golfer with no limbs and shot the ball with his nose. I don't know. This is a funny movie that happens to be about golf. And Randy Quaid is goddamned terrific in it. And the woman playing his wife is Catherine Harold, a great underrated actor of the 80s, who was on the Larry Sanders Show. Just outstanding from start to last. But the one scene that all the golfers liked was with the actress who was playing the woman Randy Quaid's golf character is having an affair with, Corinne Bohrer. And the scene sounds like nothing. In the scene, Corinne Bohrer runs down the hallway at the hotel that she and the Randy Quaid character are canoodling at, runs down the hallway to get some ice. The scene involves an ice machine, an ice bucket, some ice, but it does not involve Corinne wearing any clothes. Now, it's shot top up, but nevertheless, this is, for a 12 or 15 second scene, quite a dramatic thing, especially for golfers. I cannot reveal what Bobby revealed about Corinne and Randy Quaid in real life, but you probably can guess why the scene was so authentic. It's a great scene. It's a great movie. Me, I could have gotten an award from the National Association of Lumber Distributors. I am so wooden. There is no one who did not know my work who would have seen that film and said, that guy's a golf announcer. Hell, there's nobody who would have seen that film and not known my work and said, that guy must be a real sportscaster. I come across as some sort of stuffed animal who has come to life for this scene, and not very much to life. And the other thing that I learned from this scene that we did and then sweetened, where we went back and fixed the audio and Phil, the 6'8" lumberjack, did Don's voice for him, is that I can't tell which lines are Phil and which lines are Don. That's how good he was at doing an impression of Don Morrow. A limited role in the entertainment firmament, but apparently a lucrative one. So the film runs, and it's a big hit, and I'm in it, and I'm 28 years old, and by the time the film was premiering, my first gray hairs started to come in. So it is a record of me when I still had some baby fat and all black, shiny hair. At some point, not long after it premiered in late 1987, Tribune, the company that in fact owned the station I was working for at the time, Channel 5 in LA, bought the rights to this film to run on all of its stations nationwide, and at least twice a year they would run it, say, on a Friday night, and then on a Saturday afternoon, and then on a Sunday night. On all of their stations, it would get like 3 plays in 3 days, so if you were dial twisting almost anywhere in the nation, you saw this film. And me. And the older I got and the more prominent I got, and by the time I was in SportsCenter in 1992, we were 5 years removed from the recording of this thing, I didn't look quite so much as I did in this film. Plus, I did this film without my glasses. They said, can you do it without the glasses? And I went, sure, because I could still see without my glasses. And there I am with no glasses and dark hair, and I once got a call from a girlfriend about 1994 who saw me on a Tribune station in the Midwest and said, do you have a son? And I said, no. He goes, she says, I saw some guy on TV in a movie. I swear to God, this guy looks like your son. Do you? I mean, you can tell me I won't break up with you. I'll still be your girlfriend, but what? Do you have a son, an adult son? I went, no, that's me. How long ago was this filmed? Like 8 years. Holy cow, have you aged? But there was a check involved in this, and it ran well into the late 90s, and I think I last saw it somewhere on cable about 2003. And Bobby Roth asks a great question as he goes out to do his documentary. This is now his thing. He's no longer an entertainment movie maker. He's a documentarian, a filmmaker about democracy, and he's doing his part to try to save democracy too, and that's what we talked about. He asked me to introduce myself. I said I'm the podcaster, the original anchor of MSNBC, and a commentator, and I was the 17th male lead in the movie Dead Solid Perfect. There is, as always, a punchline to this. 2 of them. Corinne Bohrer, the ice bucket lady. About 15 years after we recorded this, I put on my TV, and there's a commercial in which a mom is driving her new car to go pick up her kids at the school, and it's Corinne Bohrer. And I wanted to shout at the characters in the commercial, hey, do you know about her and the ice machine? And soon, Corinne Bohrer, who had a lovely kind of decent, calm, long-suffering mother face that had grown out of her running down a hallway naked to get ice face, she was suddenly the mother in every television commercial for maybe 10 years, ending around 2011 or 12. Every damn commercial, hundreds and hundreds. It's like, and there's the mother of the nation, Corinne Bohrer. And nobody ever brought up the ice bucket scene. It would have seemed to me natural that they gave her a job for some hotel chain somewhere in which she runs down the aisle to get ice, fully clothed and followed by her 6 children under the age of 5. But who listens to me? And then the punchline of all punchlines, apart from the fact that I saw Bobby Roth last week for the first time in 37 years, and he was great, and we had a great time, and now I will have been in 2 films, basically consecutive films, both of them made by Bobby Roth, in different centuries. The punchline is, maybe 2008 or 2009, I was flying back from Los Angeles to New York, and I thought I saw him as we sat down on the plane, but wasn't sure and didn't want to get up and go looking for him in the plane. But we get to JFK Airport, and I wait for the other passengers to come off. And after a few minutes, and just about to give up and go and get my bag and go home, there he is. And he sees me and lets out a shout. "Hey, my co-star!" It's Randy Quaid. And he was already beginning to go a little towards where he is now, and he was, again, just lovely to me. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if that's the lesson of Dead Solid Perfect. I tend to think maybe these bad things happen to him because of the Corinne Bohr running down the hall with the ice cube scene. I've done all the damage I can do here. Thank you for listening. I don't even think there's a DVD of Dead Solid Perfect. It's a damn shame. It's a great film. Most of our Countdown music was arranged, produced, and performed by Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel, our musical directors of Countdown. It was produced by TKO Brothers. Mr. Ray was on the guitars, bass, and drums. Mr. Chanel handled orchestration and keyboards. Our satirical pithical musical comments are by the bestical baseball stadium goal organist ever, Nancy Faust. The Olbermann theme from ESPN2, written by Mitch Warren Davis, courtesy of ESPN, is the sports music. Other music, not including the love theme from Dead Solid Perfect, and there is one, was arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed. My announcer today was my friend Dennis Leary. Everything else was, as always, my fault. That's Countdown for today, day 190 of America Held Hostage again. Just 1,281 days until the scheduled end of his lame duck and lame brain term, unless he is removed sooner by MAGA and Jeffrey Epstein and that fully credible witness, Ghislaine Maxwell. The next scheduled countdown is Thursday. Until then, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.